our discussion, we have challenges for employees. What are the challenges? Some of the challenges associated with finding a job here in Australia. One of it is certifications, because here employers require certification. For example, to be a teacher or to be a project manager, you must have certifications in order to be employed in that organizations. And then the second challenges is overseas experience doesn't count in the current environment. Okay? And then the third one in terms of challenges is local. You must have a local experience. That's the one in order to step into the local market here, local jobs here. And then in terms of what have some of the chances that we're working with a multicultural environment in Australia. The first one in terms of
answering the first one or everything, all of them?
Well, just go through each one of them, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah. If I miss some of the points, my colleague will.
That's fine.
Will add some. Okay. So what have some of the challenges associated with working with within a multicultural environment in Australia? One of it is in terms of languages. Okay. And then the second one in terms of culture, because in Asia culture there's differences with Australian or Western cultures. For example, greetings.
Going to the apartment.
And what?
What do you mean by greeting?
For example, once you are in the environment, okay, we have different type of greetings people. For example, I said, okay, how are you? Maybe if you are from Japanese, like this, so we have to familiarize with the local culture here. So that is one of the challenges, because most of these brought up from our we brought up from our countries or from where we were from. So we have to familiarize what's the culture here. That's the one, the second one. And then in terms of culture, based on the experience that the perception of ASEAN, especially ASEAN, they are very shy people. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
So that's a perception on your side, or do you think it's a perception on an Australian's point of view?
No. That is what they perceive,
I think we believe once newcomers, when they come to the office, possibly they'll demonstrate, signs of shyness, or not fitting in for the first few weeks.
What's an Australian point of view of that?
I think that comes back a lot to the society structure, and we talked about communal versus individual. And Australians by nature are taught to speak out and challenge, whereas a lot of Asian cultures particularly are taught not to be deferential to your managers, etc.
So and also the age has got an important role to play in the Asian countries. The age, there's a lot of respect for these elderly people.
For elder, yes.
Compared to
And there's often a great emphasis on politeness, which Australians aren't. We're not all but it's probably not as high in our priorities. Friendliness and openness is probably higher than traditional politeness.
Yeah, and then one of the points raised by members here, Australian is aggressive. Sorry,
I think that's the translation to openness and speak up.
The ASEAN is shy, but Australian is aggressive.
Assertive is a better word, I think.
Yeah, you can change later on. Just the word that we can come up.
Say, for example, somebody would not drink beer, for example.
Okay, no worries. So
they're offering beer to you, but you refuse. Maybe it is something culturally different. It has nothing to do with.
So you're basically talking about communication styles and Eastern versus Western communication styles, and how in Australia, I guess being more overt, you lay things on the table rather than sort of sugar-coated, basically. Whereas an Asian culture would be more like, let's make it sound nice, but maybe be a bit more polite on the outside, but sort of put it in such a way that it sounds nicer than it is because it's part of the politeness thing, but things may be falling apart sometimes, and not being explicit might have its set of disadvantages.
Yeah, one of the example what I want to give it over there is that, if you just take an example of cricket, so
Cricket.
yeah, that's right.
Cricket.
Okay, so that's the spirit. I mean, they want to play aggressive game always at every time. That's the culture. I mean, that's a winning attitude that they have to do that, and so.
Are you saying that that's an Indian culture, or do you think?
No, that's
Australian.
So
Okay.
that's the example that I'm giving.
Aggressive cricket.
Not at the moment.
But maybe,
It's a month and
yeah, okay,
it's a month will
is there
show.
anything else you'd like to add to that?
Okay, yeah, and then the fourth one, I think the fourth one, they mentioned about, ASEAN is more talkative than Australia.
Okay, so
More
besides,
talkative,
besides
okay?
communication style, with differences of communication style,
Yeah.
quiet versus talkative, overt versus, underlying, is there anything else you'd like to add to that list of cultural differences?
No, except the previous ones, when they mention about some challenges. I just want to add, I missed the several points regarding some of challenges related with finding a jobs. Okay, I just want to highlight that there is challenges in terms of, to find jobs here. There is what we call this through contacts, through networking. It's not just, maybe somebody offering, you can have a job.
Lack of maybe of contact.
Yeah.
So I guess if people have contacts due to the connections that they have with
Yeah.
people in Australia, that will then increase the likelihood of someone finding a job regardless of their background. That's basically the
Yeah.
point that's being drawn up.
Yeah.
And is there anything else you'd like to
Yeah,
add?
for employers?
The third question.
Okay, the
Yep.
third questions. From employers, what are some of the challenges associated with getting an effective team working in a multicultural environment? Okay, one of it is don't be judgmental. That is the first point. Because it's not based on appearance, but based on performance, attitude, skill set. And then in terms of, you have to understand challenges in terms of understand the strengths and weaknesses. And then you in terms of recognition and to be appreciated, by
So it's going to be a
giving chance
win-win
to
situation
participate.
where the
Feedback,
employee needs to be able to.
Give effective feedback to the employee.
Yeah, okay.
So the employee knows that that employee has some value there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so you're talking about recognizing their strengths. Yeah, okay.
Recognize
Valuing
their
them,
strengths,
yeah,
skills,
okay.
attitude.
Okay, no, it's
Okay,
great,
so if I
fantastic.
miss something,
And so the last-
Well
Yeah.
done.
Last
Okay,
thing
cool.
was
Excellent, thank you very much.
last thing was some of the Asian or South people who come here and work. They are very aggressive because they want to prove themselves.
Yep.
Initially, and they do things that might also threaten the existing status quo.
I noticed you guys mentioned the word aggressive a few times.
No, this is something different.
Yep.
Say the
I
established
think the
status
word
quo
here
is
not aggressive but hardworking.
hard.
Okay.
So they're trying to bring their history, experience,
Yeah.
work hard, suggest new ideas on
New
the table
ideas,
or straight
Right.
away, which
Straight away.
creates some threat internally. if that's the
Internally,
case.
yes, it does that.
which might not be acceptable to the organization or to the superior, because
And co-workers as well.
back home, they have a lot of experience compared to,
So, I mean, in Australia, we often have this thing called tall poppy syndrome. So, if, let's say, an Asian person says, well, I'm going to bring my cultural aspects to Australia and work really hard, whereas Australians have a different way of structuring things. How do you think?
For example, there's a problem that currently the department is trying to solve for 1 year. And this new guy comes and does it in 2 days.
But was he from a particular culture, or is it just his personality?
It is something that that guy doesn't understand.
Right.
He did it because he wanted to establish himself.
Yeah, I think that would happen even if they go to
so
Australia.
achievers.
Yeah, I think
So
irrespective
who
of
are
culture.
achieving?
Yeah, there's
That
always
would
that
be an
thing of
issue.
Yeah.
proving
Yeah.
Proving yourself, fitting in with the place.
So in that case, I've got an intelligent manager because he's using me all the time. Whenever there is a kind of big issue, Taryn, you have to take care of it. And I did it.
But sometimes it backfires as well.
No, I think he's taking the positive manner. Yeah, but you're true.
So I guess some issues are being brought forward, although superficially they may seem to be cultural issues, but they're not. They're just a matter of personality.
Yeah, that's right.
I've actually had that. I've had that myself. I've been the one that, just your deal, with a person who's been in Australia maybe 2 or 3 years, but from Malaysian. And in fact, I got the same thing. So I don't think that's a thing between Australian culture and another. That's between people.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So how much of that is perception of racial issues or cultural issues, and how much is reality? That sort of discernment and looking a bit deeper to investigate might be necessary. Okay, and is there anything else, or can we move on to the next table there? Happy with that? Okay, excellent. Next table, would you like to talk about what sorts of things? Documentation.
See, one of the things what we discussed was that the type of, in the resume writing, the roles in the Asian countries, the roles what they hold is very important compared to the delivery of what outcome what they achieved in their present job.
Right.
So it's a cultural issue,
Right.
and people don't let go of whatever they have achieved in their past. And the resume becomes like 12 pages, 13 pages for because they are what they hold on. It's my personal experience I'm saying.
Did you find that, Steve?
Not really. I've actually found that people put down the facts.
Yeah.
And it really didn't matter where they're from. They put down the facts of their achievements or their duties.
Yeah.
I don't like the duties
No,
because we could all have the same duties and have different achievements. I didn't really see that.
What I'm saying, Steve, is that in India, the way it is, which that suppose he is a GM of a particular company, a large corporate there, he is considered as he can walk into any company and get a job.
Yes.
Here, that's not the case. Here, what happens is that if he has come from overseas, he has to start all over again. That's all I'm trying to tell actually. So, but the kind of a corporate what is overseas, the guy who must have worked will be multiple big times as the corporation what he is seeking a job.
But isn't that a cross-cultural thing? I mean, across, if a local person, it's not necessarily a cultural issue. I mean,
It's a cultural issue.
No, we're talking about like Asian country title and position are very important.
in relation
So-
to self-esteem.
Yeah, that's right. In relationship to your achievement or your personality or your, things like that. If you got that title, you've proven yourself already. But in Australia, it's
Yeah,
actually
you got to prove yourself.
you got to prove yourself. Besides the title, you need to look at how you deal with things. We have behavioral interview. That really doesn't.
Given that we've got an overwhelmingly large majority of perhaps people from an Asian background, what do the locals in this room say? Do you think that that's true, or would you like to challenge
what
that?
that says, definitely, I would support that because I've seen it so many times. And I think a person from Malaysia and somebody from India has explained that to me, like themselves, to say that the title means automatic respect, automatic,
That's right.
you do as you're told.
Correct.
Whereas Australians aren't like that. Australians will respect, their initial thing is to respect it, but it's very much that the people are equal, and a person will challenge if the boss asks them to do something they think is not right or silly. They're quite naturally challenging it. Plus, there is always that thing with Australian culture, approve, and there's terms for it, isn't there, about getting your authority.
We talk about that
Authority
directive
by
and consent.
title, authority by something else.
Yeah.
And that I think I've seen that a number of times where it is difficult for people from a lot of Asian cultures to understand that.
So then from a management perspective, if someone's to manage a team and they're from overseas, they then need to make that adjustment
Yes.
to the way
If
Australians
they're
do
a
things.
person, it could be, if they're a person who depends on their subordinates, that people report to them, doing everything they say without question.
So Australians are taught to question, to be vocal.
Well, I think as a manager of Australian people, I expect to be challenged. And if I know that I don't have experience in a particular area,
Yeah.
I have to be open about that because I'll get found out.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of the time in Asian culture, you can kind of bluff it a little bit. And I can say that from experience because I did live in Singapore for 6 years and had a lot of that where you could kind of fake it till you make it.
I'll give you a good
People
example.
reporting to you will not dare to
I
ask
won't
you.
question, yeah.
They don't dare to ask
And
you.
one of the jokes we used to have was in the company that I worked for in Asia, the massive title inflation. Everyone had to be a VP of the organisation.
The title is very important.
Whereas
Just
here,
going to say in the US, how many people are VPs?
yeah, it's like the US, and it's probably driven out of the US.
Especially in IT industry.
So is there anything else this group wants to add to these questions? I notice
And also
Stephen
that,
jumping up and down.
he also had,
I think we also touch on what is more effective, touch on SIG. We spend time on applying job in SIG. May not be, I share my, SIG.com. I share my experience.
SIG, right.
Job boards.
Right.
Yeah, I share my experience that SIG probably is going to a lot of company, not so personal, versus Link, which I have good experiences that people actually connect with me and actually approach me for job. Give me, in fact, it happened yesterday. So I was saying, we were saying LinkedIn probably a better place.
Yeah.
And we also touched on a bit on the Asian versus the Australian. I think we talked about the directive here.
we talked about the individual kind of working versus group working. Whereas in Asia, is what happens is there's a lot of process there in the company to be followed without questions. So it is very easy to implement the kind of process in companies in Asia. Whereas here, each and everything, new introduction will be questioned. Very difficult to be implemented.
Because
So,
that's
and especially if you are a manager caught between some of the multicultural group, you are gone.
So that touch on the cultural aspect, the Asian, the direct respect. Here,
Very hierarchical.
here is individual. You have your.
So like a queen bee and sort of a very hierarchical structure. where everyone
So
follows.
if for Asian to come down, they have to be ready to be challenged, and willing to step up and speak up, rather
So
than-
almost like a salute, yes sir, versus let's all talk about it. So more collaborative.
So it actually ties down to that. If you don't, then you see people more aggressive. If you step up and say your piece, and be more consensus approach, then you draw the good of both sides. Rather than you sit and expect someone to tell you
What to do.
then
Don't
you
expect to be told
feel
what to
that
do,
people
right.
are aggressive because you don't speak up.
Okay, that's really interesting.
So that we haven't got to that, but I think we are heading to that direction. But we haven't got that yet.
So do you feel that I guess stepping newly into Australia for the last 9 months, you've been making that transition where that difference between Malaysian culture and Australian culture, that
I
clash?
have a different challenges
Yeah.
which doesn't have time to share.
Yeah.
All these I've experienced in my previous job in Shell, which
Yeah.
I've managed a multinational, diverse cultural group.
Yeah.
So we have experienced all these problems before.
Okay.
Indian offshore Wipro and all these people I deal with. So my problem is to localize my CV, localize my experiences, which I do a lot of global roles. So tapping on the big title and things. In Shell, they don't give big title. They give me manager global. But
That's a big title.
But a lot of my peer out in the market, they're carrying a director or VP level. But I don't. But however, bring that experience into Australia, some of them, they don't understand. But I do talk to a lot of recruiters as well. Why in the first place they so-called resist to place Asian into a job? Because a lot of Asian may not be ready to deal with the Australian culture.
So it's a cultural
And
clash.
even though they place a VP level guy into a job, they may not be even communicate better. That was the challenges they have.
So it's not so much
Until
the
they
technical
talk to me,
skills.
they say you are one different person.
Yeah.
But however, I think we also touch on the market sentiment. I think that is a big problem we are facing, and I'm facing as well.
So
less
where the
job
market's
out
sort of at.
there. So employer market, there are more choices out there. And I think back to what I mentioned earlier, the people network, the LinkedIn probably is better than the Seek.com. Seek.com, you're actually into a mailbox or into a company. Yeah. Even I have actually experienced, I call someone from Seek.com, leave a message, they never call, and I keep calling, I know they will not call back, but just couldn't get a person. Versus LinkedIn, proactively, I have both, I talked to someone and someone actually connected with me.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you short there, but because we're running out of time, we do actually need to complete this event and be out of here by 8 o'clock. So I'd like to tie this event up and give enough time to everyone to actually voice their opinions. So I think Steve had something he wanted to say, but I think he's talking about that later.
Come back at the end, so.
Yeah, okay, so if you guys could sort of maybe perhaps add some of the issues that have not been discussed.
Charlene's our spokesperson.
Perhaps other issues that haven't already been discussed to add to that flavour of what we've talked about.
We were discussing about the resumes and how to highlight our experience.
Yeah.
So we discussed one way is about making it bold, so that and taking keywords from the job description and putting them in your resume and making them bold so that they'll jump out at the recruiter when they are scanning through it, because of the difficulty, because now it's mostly computerized and they're picking up from the databases, so it may get lost otherwise. So that was one point about the resume.
So when the recruiter presses Control F and finds a keyword that
so those words are there over there.
And the hiring manager, not
And
just
the hiring,
recruiter.
And
okay, so you're just talking mainly about resumes and how resumes can be more visible and stand out more? Okay.
Very good.
Also, just to comment on that, just 30 seconds. The way we work, we look at our database first, LinkedIn, networking, and the very last is Seek. Right?
That's interesting.
And the reason is because the first three, there's a fair chance we'll know the people or they'll know
Already got it.
Okay. And that's why people who go through Seek often have the difficulty of getting heard.
Yeah.
Okay. So
It's like
thanks
sort
for
of
the confirmation.
jumping up and down in a rock concert in a sea of masses of
Yeah.
people and almost screaming for a voice, but not being completely. Yeah. So would this group like to add anything?
Yeah. So in terms of the culture, what we are talking about, so when we are taking people into a team, it is more whether the personality, the person is going to fit with the rest of the people.
Can everyone over there actually hear? Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, so whether they can fit into the team so that the team is effective at the end of the day. So if you have a massive team working on projects, you want to make sure it's the right fit for the purpose, and you can get the best out of the team, and you don't want to put somebody who's going to make the efficiency of the team go down. So that part is there, definitely when you are selecting. In terms of the culture, I was just thinking about when I first joined the bank, what happened. This is a long time back. So I had a user, which was about some tax file which we need to put in. I have to implement. The guy was always on Monday morning, the first thing if I want to go see him, he will talk about footy. I had no idea about footy. If you ask me about my Carnatic music, I can talk about it. I had no idea what footy was. Then I was thinking, this guy is talking always about footy. So I started to watch the match. I had to go and talk to him about how Collingwood went. So I had to talk to him, Collingwood didn't do that time well. So I used to tease him after about so many years, like 47 years or something, they won the match at that time. And I say, oh gee, this is really good. So once we have talked about it, then I can talk about the business. Until that time, you'll always be going back.
Forget about talking about the business. It's master the art of.
So you don't have a choice if you want to get to where you want to go. So it is making them feel comfortable, you being comfortable as well. So that will mean that when you say local culture, what the people know here. It's just to get the rapport going.
It's more than culture, it's individual.
More
It's
the
individual.
rapport.
I mean, I'm mad for footy follow too, but it's not about that.
No.
It's like I said
It's a
with
rapport.
the interview, that if the interviewer knows the hot buttons of the candidate, whether it's playing piano or whatever, and they've got something in common, that starts the conversation.
Just to have the rapport.
Yep.
So whatever that it takes.
You need to connect as
As
people,
people.
not as candidate, as an employer, and
whatever it takes.
yeah, you often read that really the person makes up their mind in that first 30 seconds when they meet you. and then as long as you tick all the boxes, it's okay. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, but
Something
is
to
it,
keep the record.
yeah, but is it the culture of Australian that you need to connect and break the ice? In Asia, do you need to do that actually to talk about, you know, hobbies and things before you Monday morning? Do you do that Monday morning?
No,
Yeah, it's a culture that we need to break the ice in Australia because in Asian country you don't actually do that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes.
It might be,
Yeah.
I
differ on that.
Sports
If
being
you work
integral part of Australian culture.
That's right. So it's not just a personal thing, it is a culture.
It is a
break
culture.
down.
but that's where Asian culture is also very different in different countries.
Yeah.
Hong Kong, time is money.
Yeah.
so
Indonesia,
if you start talking about footy
Indonesia,
on a Monday morning, that would be,
Yeah, you
it's
don't
not.
talk about,
Indonesia, everything is on personal basis. So
Yeah.
I will first
Okay.
get to know you as a friend and a family,
Yeah.
and then I will start the work.
Yeah.
So even in Asia, it is very different. So
Okay.
Hong Kong, time is money. I need this, I'll get it now.
Yeah.
Indonesia, time is, there's plenty of
Yeah.
time. So you need the project specifications, yes, you'll get it tomorrow. Tomorrow
curious
means
about
5 p.m., you'll be lucky.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I've heard that, especially going back 20, 25 years when Australia was when Melbourne was nowhere near as many, Asian cultures as there is now. And I remember we were taught, sort of working for Shell, and you're interacting with some Asians that, never launch straight into the content of the meeting. Always, you need to build a relationship first, and that might take an hour or more. And it's rude to start talking about business before you've built that. Now, I think that has, from what people here see tonight, saying tonight, especially that has gone away a little bit, and the things have mixed. But there's probably a happy balance there. But certainly, I remember being taught that.
Sorry,
Sure, that's relationship building in every culture.
I think one last point which I want to make, in this globalization, majority of the projects are running in agile way and all those things.
Yeah.
Cultural getting, everyone learns each other's culture.
Yep.
Okay, with the video conferencing, with with unified communications, everything. It's not that they are all greeting each other. They understand what is happening in that country or what is happening back in Asia. So they like to talk about the culture, and then they want to start with the meeting. If at all I am having a stand-up call, yes, I want to get it to the point, but we talk to what's happening cricket or probably AFL or something, or any other good things to start with, and then get into the business. So that's what the whole globalization has brought into this project management community.
It's forced everyone together to interact and respect each other and tolerate each other's differences and bring out the best in each other. Yeah. Okay, well.
That's also human nature. I mean, you want to
Yeah,
feel like
you want to
you mean something to someone.
Yeah. Okay, well, is there anything that anyone else wants to add to the mix before we sort of wind up? I think,
It's open-ended.
sorry.
Yeah. One last point.
So what we were talking about is that in terms of, some of the Asian cultural, in some of the communities, being open and honest sometimes is not possible because that's not how they're being brought up. So saying no, for instance, is not
You just know.
acceptable.
Yeah.
You just say yes but don't do it.
In fact, if you say no, that's considered really rude. Whereas if you say yes,
So you don't know whether the person is going to do it or not.
Yeah.
And so over here, in here, some of my people ask me, so you are Indian, you can tell me. I said, no, I don't know now anymore what that is like because I've been here too long to be able to say whether I understand. However, because of the outsourcing, when we work with the people from India or any other place, that sometimes you don't see that there is some problem and they don't tell you. And the last minute, you find that your project, you really have to, basically crisis manage to get the project in time. And you can sit there finding out what the reasons are, but then, so if the person is open and honest, you would have made your life easy.
Well, it's not that they're not open and honest. They just have a different way
Yeah.
to decide things.
Yeah.
They might think that they're open already, but you don't think that they are.
That's right. And we need to know something different to get them to talk about.
so I guess the commonality between all cultures is that we need to know factual information to be able to manage a project effectively so that we can push it along. And if we don't have the factual information, everything falls apart. So that's, again, correct across all cultures.
Well,
So the
yeah,
ways of eliciting that information might be different across different cultures.
correct, yeah.
All right, I think Steve wanted to
Yeah,
actually.
just to wind up, there's a ex-contractor who I've known for over 12 years who has actually set up a company where he can actually get people, what he calls, to the front of the queue. Now he's embarking on a free lecture on that, how that works. And I've got his card, so if anybody's interested, I can give you his card, you can contact him. He mentioned me, but he said no, he knows that I'm here tonight. And the other thing is, if anybody wants to talk to me, I'll give you a card and then we can have a chat, not today, but give me a call.
Okay.